Welcome to On Texas Football. I'm Bobby Burton, your host, joined by Bob Shipley and Bryan Erwin, two fantastic former high school coaches in the Texas high school ranks. Also had some stint in the college ranks as well. Guys, I've got to tell you, this is a big loss for Texas, 30-15. But we want to talk a little bit about that and some of the things we think about that, and talk about what Texas does going forward now that Vanderbilt's on the way. Look, I think it was a disappointing game against the Georgia Bulldogs, but there were some positives that came out of it too. Coach Shipley, I want to ask you what your positive takeaway was in this one.
Well, defensively, I thought we played. I thought we played well. You know, they were kind of fighting a short field because of our offensive turnovers. But you know, defensively, when you look at the stats from Carson Beck, it doesn't look like the stats you'd see from a quarterback who just upset the number one team in the country. So defensively, I feel like we played well enough to win. And I think that's a positive thing. And the other positive thing I get from this is, you know, all the talk about being having a Heisman candidate, having the offensive line of the year, being number one in the nation, that crap's gone. All right, so we're back to the dog mentality of a chip on our shoulder. And maybe that's where we're best, because there's a really good chance we're going to meet this team again if we take care of business and they take care of business. So the positive is that we can come back and potentially redeem ourselves now that we know what Kirby's going to, you know, he gave us his best shot, and it was a great one. He's the reason they won the game. Kirby Smart, in my opinion. And it's going to be difficult for other teams to duplicate what he did because they don't have the athletes he has. He has incredible athletes, and we found out that what the top of the SEC looks like, guys. They've won 2 out of the last 3 years the national championship. They're freaking blue blood for a reason, and we found out why.
Bryan, on Coffee and Football on Monday morning when we talked to you, you said something that kind of echoed Coach Shipley's sentiments about the defense. You said that this defense is good enough to win championships. It may not be a great defense, but it's good enough if you can play complementary football. What do you mean by that?
I just feel like our defense is going to travel. You know, I mean, whether we're at home or on the road, our defense is going to keep us in it. Nobody's going to get away from us. And the other night, it could have gotten away from us in a hurry. But we hold them to, 3 field goals in the first half to keep that number down at 23 instead of 34, 35, whatever the number could have been. So, and it gave us a chance going into the second half to have a legitimate chance. We go down and score the first series, and now it's 23-8. Then we go down and score a little bit later. It's 23-15. It's a ball game now. It's a big-time ball game. So I think the positive is exactly what Coach Shipley said. The defense stood out. They got the turnovers we needed to win the game. You got to get those turnovers to win a big game like that. That first one we got where we possessed it on the 42-yard line, and we punted from the 41. You know, we gained 1 yard on that after that turnover, and we got a chance right there to go set the tone for the game and go score first and not get Georgia from playing from behind early on. So I thought the defense was a huge positive. I also think the fight that we did show a lot of fight, a lot of grit, a lot of resolve, and I'm proud of how hard our guys played. Even offensively, the second half, we started to establish the run game a little bit. We started being physical. I don't think we got pushed around. I don't think we got just totally outclassed. Like, you know, their physicality just completely overwhelmed our physicality. I didn't feel like that. You know, I felt like our defense was very, very, very physical. Yeah, we missed a few tackles, but from a physicality standpoint, I feel really good about this football team in the trenches, on defense, everywhere. And then the last thing I would say, and Coach Shipley knows this as well as I do, nothing's as bad as it seems. Nothing's as good as it seems. Somewhere in between lies reality. So it's all good. We still got a great football team. We got a great coaching staff. We got a great program. We're in the top 5 in the country. We got a legitimate chance to get to the SEC championship. We got a legitimate chance to be in the top 12. And, you know, that's still our goal. So we're okay. We are okay. And now, like Coach Shipley also said, the edge that Georgia had there's no doubt Kirby had him on edge, and credit to him and kudos to him. We've got to now possess that same edge, that same chip on our shoulder, because it's going to take that edge each and every Saturday to withstand these next handful of games, just to be able to put ourselves in position to get to Texas A&M, because we can't afford another loss, right? We cannot lose another game.
Yeah, I agree with that. One of the things that you said there, Bryan, that I think is interesting, at least to me, you talked a little bit about leaning on that run game. Texas really, when you look at it, didn't lean on that running game until the second half. Is that something you think that Texas needs to get going sooner? What about you, Coach Shipley or Bryan? What do you think, Bryan? I'll go to you first.
Yes. Run the damn ball, please. I mean, script in a run. You script 9 plays, 11 plays, however many plays Sark scripts. You don't have to script in all these exotic, fancy shifts and motions and play action passes. You can line up in a formation without motioning, without shifting, and just run the football. See how they're going to line up against your formation. The game's not won or lost right there, but we've got to set the mentality that we want the balance at the end of the game, and that's what Sark talked about in his press conference. He wants the balance at the end of the game. Well, you've got to have some semblance of balance at the beginning, or a game like that gets away from you, then you're not going to have the balance. You're not going to have the ability to balance that thing out by the end of the game. So we've got to run the football. We're going to throw. We got elite receivers. We talked about the tight end. Gunnar Helm is a freaking weapon. He might be the most valuable player on our offense. We've got to be able to get him the football. But yes, please run the football. We've got a good offensive line. We've got good backs. Let's set the tone from the very beginning, and let's script in a handful of runs in there, and let's just start pounding away at that thing, because we know we're not going to break the dam in the first quarter anyway, but you can by the time you get to the third or the fourth quarter. So yes, we've got to run the football. We got to quit being so fancy with our script, with our opening script. It doesn't have to be that fancy. Line up, see how they line up, and let's go.
I think Bryan's right. I also thought it was a little strange that we didn't see Jaden Blue carry the ball. He was a weapon, in receiving, but he never had a carry once, in that game. And I think that's a result of the game getting away from you early and causing you to get away from your script. And I got to agree with Bryan. I think, what can be your greatest asset can also be a thorn in your side. For some people, all that shifting and motion and all that cute stuff is really effective. Against Georgia, they were playing a lot of man coverage. To me, you run the football, because if you're going to run, to beat man coverage, you've got to have great receivers. We do, but they have great DBs too. So now you've got to run mesh routes, you've got to run rub routes, you've got to run double move routes. We didn't have time to do that, and they're sending corner blitzes and nailing us in the back, We kept getting behind the sticks, and quarterbacks were shaking up. We weren't protecting them that great. Kirby did what we were afraid he would do. He dialed up some things we hadn't seen before, But he can't dial up those things if you're running the football.
I think I get what you guys are saying. I mean, it's almost like you have to have a run game so that the passing game has a chance to work at some level. Yeah, you can get cute and maybe trick them for a little bit with formations and whatnot. But ultimately, you got to get them going a little bit there also. All right, look, we want to talk about a couple other things about this game, but I want to move forward to Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's a little bit difficult right now. we got to talk about them because, frankly, Bryan and Coach Shipley, they are in a situation right now where they have a chance to play for the SEC championship too. And they've got a quarterback right now that Sark in his press conference on Monday called the very definition of grit. How do you think this Texas team needs to approach Vanderbilt? Do they need to go just throw caution to the wind and go out there with their hair on fire? What do you think that Sark needs to be talking to these kids about this week, Bryan?
I think that we can't let Georgia beat us twice, obviously. We've got to go out and be prepared for Vanderbilt's best effort. They're physical. They run the football. They're a possession type of football team, a time of possession type of football team. Those are the type of teams that scare you to death. They scared me to death as a coach. I can remember back in the days when I was at Lamarck and we'd play Santa Fe. Santa Fe wasn't very good, but they ran the wishbone and they could keep the ball from us. I remember we'd turn around and we'd have 5 possessions for the whole game. You know, we win 24-0 or 24-7, but literally you limit your possessions, and that's what's going to happen Saturday. Vanderbilt's going to do their best to limit our possessions, which puts even more pressure on the quarterback play, puts more pressure on the third down lack of efficiency that we've got going on right now. Because if we don't convert on third down Saturday, it's going to be a dogfight at the end.
You cannot fulfill your dreams of being a championship team, conference championship team, without beating Vandy in Nashville. You've got to do it. And if these guys are not mature enough to understand that, if they're not competitive enough to understand, they've got to go in and give the best effort of the season, or they're going to get their butts embarrassed. I mean, that's what it's going to come down to. How much pride do you have as a team to pick yourself up after you got it handed to you, okay, and beat a team who's already beat Alabama? I mean, you know, they beat some really, really good teams. And if you think they're not the real deal, just go up there half-cocked and see what happens to you. It's not going to be pretty. You have got to have your guys ready to play. They've got to come out on fire and show that they are the football team that we think they are, not what everybody hyped that they are.
They've got to show that they're valid, right? They're not just one-hit wonders, and that's what we've talked about all year. All right, I want to say thank you. Going to keep going here, but say thank you first to our sponsor. Laura Baker, Austin-based realtor, is our sponsor for Lunch with the Coach. She's been with us from the outset. Give her a call, 512-784-0505. That's 512-784-0505. Laura at AndyAllenTeam.com. Laura is the person you want to turn to if you have any real estate needs in the Austin area or Georgetown, Round Rock, etc. Anywhere there, she is the person you want. 512-784-0505. Laura, as we like to say around here, is an OG. She's an OTF OG. Hey, guys, I'm also thinking about some other things that we need to work on, or that Texas needs to work on. Bryan, pregame, you were talking about punting being an issue for the Longhorns. Describe to folks what you were saying there.
I know this probably doesn't excite a lot of people, but it does me. But punt is one of the most effective plays in the game of football. I mean, how many plays do you have in your playbook that you can run a formation out there, you can snap it, and you can gain 45 yards just that fast? And so I thought a huge difference in the game the other night. Georgia's punter was outstanding. Ours was very average. There was a 10-yard differential between their punt game and our punt game. That's large. I can't remember exactly how many times they punted, or we punted roughly 4 and 4. That's my first guess. I don't know exactly. If they punted 3 or 4 times, or we punted 3 or 4 times, that's 10 yards each time. I mean, if you go out and sign a guy that could pick you up 3 or 4 first downs a game, I signed that guy like yesterday. So the hidden yardage in the punt game, we've got to improve. We've got to be able to bomb that thing down there. We've got to get better at that position. And so that's a huge one for me, especially when it comes to special teams. Obviously, we had the big kickoff return also. They got called back. And those are just huge chunks of yardage that right now, whereas in the past, we've been an elite special teams unit. And right now, our special teams is kind of a thorn in our side. Not kicking the field goal in the third quarter was a big decision, not kicking it. And so we've got to get back to being elite in the kicking game, which is where we've been, with Jeff Banks and the crew for a couple of years. I want to get back to being dominant in the special teams with our units and with our specialists.
I got a question. You're talking about execution and going out there and making all that happen. The elephant in the room that we haven't talked about yet is the quarterback position at Texas. And I want to get both of y'all's takes on that and what y'all think you need to see from Quinn Ewers on Saturday. Steve Sarkisian on his Monday press conference said Quinn is the quarterback, no questions asked. What do y'all need to see from Quinn this weekend?
I think it goes back to a point that Bryan made after the OU game, and that is he has to get settled back in and focus on his fundamentals. He was better than he was at OU. He's still not back to himself yet. And I really think he's used to seeing, people playing zone coverage against us and having big holes and just, it's a cakewalk. Well, it's not always going to be that way. You're going to have teams that are going to come up and are going to press your receivers, and there's going to be tight windows, and there's going to be pressure around you. How do you respond to that? I don't know. I've never been a quarterback, obviously at that level. I played quarterback in junior high. Well, I threw one pass. But I do know that he's got to have confidence in his offensive line. He's got to have confidence in receivers. But the most important thing that Quinn Ewers needs to do is regain confidence in himself. And I just don't see it right now. It could be injuries. It could, he just doesn't feel like he's comfortable back there yet. And so as a result, his mechanics are not good. And when your mechanics are not good, your throwing is going to be erratic. It's not going to be consistent. And I think that's what we're seeing with him. I agree with Sark. He's our quarterback. He's the guy. And he brought us back in the second half and did a better job than the first half. But, he's got to be able to see things like a corner blitz coming. He didn't see it. He never saw it.
Bryan, what do you think? What do you think Quinn Ewers has to do to get back and going in the right direction?
The footwork, the pocket presence, the gap escape, the dropping the ball down low. There's a lot there. I've said it yesterday, Bob. I'm concerned. It's not good. We're not going to win championship football games playing the quarterback position the way he's playing it right now. It's just there's a lot of panic, there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of anxiety, and in the SEC, you don't get many plays where there's not a lot of chaos going on. He's going to have to execute with chaos going around him, and that's the bottom line. He's got to get better. He's got to become more poised. The other thing I think about after hearing, seeing Sark's press conference, praising the grit of Vanderbilt's quarterback. That's what we want to see. That's what I want to see. I want to see the grit in Quinn's eye. I don't like the look in Quinn's eye when the camera pans over to the sideline. The grit is missing. And whether it's the grit, the internal grit, or the grit with his teammates of saying, let's go, guys, let's get this thing going. But just being a true leader that's got that grit, that's leading a championship club that's ranked number 1 in the country at that time, now number 5, we've got to have a guy, if he's the leader of the team and he's the quarterback of the team, then by gosh, stand up and lead the football team. And whether it's verbally, whether it's non-verbally, whether it's through your play, with your action, whatever it is, that's what Quinn needs to do.
All right. Before we let you guys go, we're going to say thanks again to Laura Baker of Keller Williams Realty. Laura at Andy Allen Team. If you're wanting to move to, from, or within the Austin area and want someone that really knows the area, lifelong Austinite, Laura Baker is the choice. 512-784-0505. Laura is a big-time Longhorn fan and has helped many Longhorns move to, from, or within the Austin area. All right, that's going to do it for Bob Shipley and Bryan Erwin. I'm Bobby Burton. Thanks for watching Lunch with the Coach. Hug 'em.